Hey, hi everyone. This video is about the legacy of area studies. So these would be all the degrees like Middle East studies, uh, African studies, all those degrees, which are in fact degrees that teach people foreign languages and regional knowledge. And today I want to talk about why they existed in the first place because and this is because of current events, which I really do not like to discuss on this channel at all. But there's some very sad news um, about one of the main centers of this kind of education, Indiana University Bloomington, and the university has decided to eliminate a bunch of programs, including as James Millward posted on Twitter, that they are eliminating the BA in Central Eurasian Studies, which includes Turkic languages, Persian, Mongolian, um, what else? Tibetan, all these languages. I'm sure they will still continue to offer the languages, but if you want to really major in it, um, it's not going to be available anymore. And I did do a stream about this. And as I said on the stream, it's not that when I'm advocating for this, I mean that every university needs to have a Central Eurasian Studies department, but if we can't even have it in the U.S. at, a very, or what should be a fairly wealthy state research institution, I mean, then where can we have it? This is a problem, right? But why do these um, departments exist in the first place? And a lot of that goes back to the Cold War. So this after the Second World War, the United States just said the U.S. government said, well, we need area experts. And if you watched my video on Richard Fry, part of his memoir. This is before and at the beginning of the Second World War. They were kind of the government had to kind of scrounge up experts in like who knows anything about Afghanistan, right? And keep in mind, this is when Afghanistan, could not be like a glimmer in the eye of like most U.S. policymakers, like in the 1930s, and even a place like Iran, even was still kind of far off. But the war and kind of the Cold War, subsequent Cold War, may crystallize that. So what the government did after the Second World War is they put a lot of money into educating people. They funded universities to set up area studies programs and centers. So that the centers are, they still exist. Are places for like doing conferences and bringing scholars together or giving funding for language study to students, that kind of thing. And then the program would be like the actual degree program. So it's a little maybe confusing, but there's sort of two components there. And we can also, you may also find that this is like Cold War tainted knowledge. They've, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not really trying to debate that part of it, but um, this is how it emerged, and what it didn't fully supplant, but what it did was this funding from the U.S. government really allowed a lot more universities to teach a lot of these less commonly taught languages that were, becoming more and more important and still are important today and will continue to be important. Um, so, that was a major transformation that this area studies kind of framework did. But the other part of setting up these area studies departments, like a Department of Middle East Studies, one of the ideas, and this was advocated for by the American Council of Learned Societies, sort of in the post-war decades, was it was not just to do language, culture, or history, like sort of more humanistic oriented learning. It was also to get like political scientists and economists who worked on the Middle East in these departments. So the idea was, in like 1950, 1960 something, you would go to this program and you would learn not just like the language, but also something about the economics of like the Middle East. And then, the political, you take the political science course on, more contemporary issues, political issues in the region, that sort of thing. And one potential career path that, you could do, and certainly many people in these areas did, was to go work, in the U.S. government. Again, I'm not trying to, say whether that's good or bad. This is just the way it worked. And another thing with the American Council of Learned Societies, and that's detailed in this book by Zachary Lockman. So if you want to read more about this, it's pretty interesting, and that's kind of what I'm drawing a lot of this from. There was a sense among them, and I should clarify. So these American Council of Learned Societies, the ACLS, was a group of all these different, academic professional organizations, and they came together and they held, like meetings about policy and funding and this sort of thing. And what one of the objectives of some of the more social science oriented people that were in these departments was the idea that, okay, we're going to come up with a research agenda that everyone will try to work on, and and it'll come up with coherent area knowledge. And as I explain that, maybe that seems kind of ridiculous, because it sort of is. It was just never, I think, going to happen like that. You're always talking about way too many different scholars working on totally different things. And it never really quite worked, to the point where the like sort of social science people, and I think Lockman's is by about like the 80s, or perhaps even before then, were saying that basically area studies had been a failure because it didn't produce this coherent, coherent research agenda like in Middle East studies. So that was one objective, and it didn't really work. And I don't think it, like I said, I don't think it ever could have worked. So the other, perhaps not so good, or not so effective thing that area studies produced, was it did kind of isolate a lot of scholars. So historians would not work with other historians and share their knowledge. They would be in the area studies department, and they would sort of be in a bubble, or not even really have a lot in common with the other scholars, because someone working as a political scientist, I'll put it this way: I think political science and history, a lot of times it's like oil and water. It just really doesn't go together. And you could probably say the same of, trying to do this sort of cross-disciplinary work. I think sometimes it can be good, but sometimes it's just really nothing good comes out of it. There's just nothing there to bring them together, other than, everyone's in area studies department. They work on the same, same kind of stuff, same region of the world. So that was the other negative of area studies, I think. What good did it do? It did a lot of good, I think, in terms of getting funding to teach students languages, getting these other histories on the map that had really not been taught very much, if at all. exposing, Americans to the world, and especially at universities where, it was state universities where, anybody could go to, and it was affordable. Um, so you didn't have to have uh, kind of the ability to get into Harvard or Princeton. You could go to, um, you could go to University of Madison, Wisconsin, or Indiana University, or something like that, and get this kind of education because of all these resources that were made available. So that, I think, was good. Uh, could area studies come back? What would it take to make them more kind of attractive, or to reinvigorate them? And really, I think it's sort of a combination of having the kind of area studies resources and funding, but really to redirect um, the departments to a more humanistic, humanities orientation. So, having the linguistics people, the historians, the literature scholars, I think that is more effective. So, sort of going back to the old, maybe Oriental studies style of education, but with less, emphasis on pure philology, uh, and purely kind of linguistic uh, education. Although that's basically obligatory. I mean, you have to know the languages to study the region. So that's my idea of how these could be reformed. But I don't know if and this is a much bigger issue, but it seems unlikely that even policymakers will see the value in this, even for completely instrumental objectives of having, Russian and Chinese linguists, right? For the State Department or whatever other U.S. government agency. So, uh, if these even very old departments like the Central Eurasian Studies at IU get cut, um, where is there really that could develop this knowledge and develop the scholarship to support the teaching of it? It's not very clear. And to even before, the Second World War, you had, like, at the University of Chicago, um, the creation of the Oriental Institute, which was sort of a precursor in some ways, uh, even though it focused on the ancient world, where the idea was you could have a institute within the University of Chicago that dealt with the Near East, again mostly ancient, but a specialized department that had the technical and intellectual knowledge to teach and research this region. Because before that, in the U.S., before really the proliferation of area studies, a lot of scholars had to go to Germany to learn, if you wanted to learn Egyptology. So the founder of the Oriental Institute, James Henry Breasted, who I think I will do a video on because he's got a great life story, but um, he had to go to Germany to get his PhD because there was really no one to teach Egyptology to him at a high, graduate level at that time. This was in the early 20th century. So, this idea predates even the Cold War. The idea of having more robust regional knowledge of non-American, non-European regions. And I don't know if that will continue. Because in the case of, if it reverts to a situation like Breasted was in, in the early 20th century, he had to do a lot of fundraising with Rockefeller, the Rockefeller Foundation, to get money to support the Oriental Institute, and and it was hard. It was not funded. He had to do a lot of that, and maybe that's just what scholars need to do, is to do fundraising and that kind of thing. But if the government and the public in general want this kind of learning, it needs to be supported as a public good. But it's not clear if that will continue, if people still will see this kind of knowledge as valuable. So that's the video. I hope this probably seems kind of disjointed, but I wanted to talk about this. And if maybe you found this interesting, and I think if nothing else, I think understanding, it's important to understand that when you watch like videos on YouTube that talk about these different languages or histories of the Islamic world or Central Asia or something, all that information somewhere started as academic knowledge that was produced by a scholar working at a university, probably. So this stuff does affect you, even if you're just a hobbyist, and there's nothing wrong with that, being a hobbyist. So anyway, I think I'll stop this here, and maybe you'll find this interesting. And thank you for watching, and I will speak to you in the next video.